Today we're going to install a 3.5-inch rough country lift kit on this 2020 Ram 1500 crew cab. It's actually a really nice truck. The customer opted for the complete struts, the upgraded shocks in the rear, comes with control arms. We're going to go over the parts right now. Alright, like I said, the customer opted for the upgraded struts. He's got the whole strut assemblies from rough country. Really nice control arms. These are actually the rear spring spacers to get the rear into spec. These are the rear shocks upgraded with mounting hardware. That's all there is to this kit. It's not too bad to do, so I'm going to show you how to do it. Alright, the first thing we're going to do before unbolting any suspension components is disconnect the electric rack. Purpose for this is we're going to take the tie rod ends off, and the last thing we want to do is cause this thing to freak out. You can ruin one of these and it's a very expensive fix. So we're going to go ahead and just disconnect the electrical connectors, pull the red tab back, and then it kind of helps if you push it in a little bit, push the detent and then pull it out, mainly because you get some corrosion in there. Like that. The top one could be a little bit of a bear because, you know, they can't make the... Alright, I literally had to stand where the camera was. But there's the big connector, and you can see on that side, this red lock will be flush to there. You need to get it pulled back, and then you press down on that center release tab and pull it back off of there. Just like that. So now that's disconnected, the next thing we're going to do is a 21mm socket. We're going to remove both tie rod end nuts and then pop the tie rods loose. Alright, we got them off. Now, if it did like mine where the stud starts spinning, you want to hold on to the end with a 10mm socket or wrench, and then use a 21mm wrench and work this off. If yours just comes off because it's stuck in here and it doesn't move out of the knuckle, then you can just take a hammer and hit a few times here fairly hard to jar the press fit, and it'll pop out. Alright, now that that's done, we're going to want to unclip the wheel speed sensor harness from the old control arms. Just use a trim tool, get behind it gently, try to work it out without breaking it, which may be impossible, but it's always worth a try. There we go. Unclipped, and do the other side. Alright, now we're going to go and remove the lower strut hardware. A 21mm bolt goes through and there's a 24mm nut, so we'll go ahead and take those out. All right, then what I'm going to do for extra precaution, you can use a floor jack. I have a T-stand or an exhaust stand I'm going to put under there. Take it out just to make sure this doesn't do anything crazy dropping. It shouldn't, but just want to make sure. All right, now that's what their directions say to do. I don't believe it's accurate because the strut is still trying to extend a little bit more. Even with this off, it's stuck. So I'm gonna do the next step, which is removing the upper ball joint nuts. Then once you remove those, it should let it drop some, and then we can use the T-stands to control the rate of drop of the lower. All right, once we got these popped free, then we were able to get the bolts out of the struts. Also went ahead and disconnected the sway bar links at the bottom, an 18mm nut. Now we're going to remove the control arms. It's a 21mm bolt, and then the nut is captured, which I'll show you after we get them out. And amazing enough is they're plastic. Like, I'm not sure why a plastic suspension component is thought to be okay, but hey, if it works, it works. All right, now this is how the nuts are contained. This little ear will actually catch on the frame, tightening or loosening, so you don't have to actually have 2 wrenches in there. You can just worry about the bolt. So once both the bolts are loose, take them out, save the hardware. We'll need them for the new control arms. Pops out just like that. And then go ahead and do the other side the same way. All right, now that we got the control arms out of the way, there are 3, I believe they're 16mm nuts on the top of each strut. We'll go ahead and take those off, and then we should be able to wiggle the strut assembly out. All right, now that we got those out, we'll see if we can take this out, push down on the lower a little bit. 1 strut assembly. Now we'll do it again on the other side. All right, now we're ready to put the new struts in. So the 2, if you look at it, it kind of has the, I guess, leaf looking to it. The 2 top ones are what go to the back, and then that'll make sure that your opening is lined up for the lower control arm. So we're going to first get at least one of these through and get a nut started. Like that, and then we're going to have to press down really hard on this lower control arm just to get this over. And I use my gut, but there. Now it's through. Now the tricky part, I'm going to loosen this back up a little bit, is getting this over far enough to line up with that, since we're talking with the longer strut. Geometry is a little different. And the new nuts are 15mm that come with the kit. All right. Now the best way I found to do this is have your bolt ready, and we'll put the pry bar in there and just gently start walking the strut back. Because you don't really want to scrape up the new parts or even the old, or even the factory stuff that much. just like that. We'll start the nut, and then we're going to install the upper control arm. All right, when you install the upper control arms, the rough country ones, the end that has the RC for rough country goes towards the front. So we'll take it. Kind of gonna work it to get them started. There we go. And then you just want to snug them up. You don't want to tighten them down. We got to wait until we're resting on body weight before we can tighten them down. So we'll get this one started and we'll do the other side. All right, we got the ball joints lined up. Everything's in there. We snugged up the nut there. We can go ahead and tighten the ball joint nut since the pivoting point is up here, not here. These get torqued to 26 foot-pounds plus 180 degrees. It's 26 foot-pounds. Set this still. Set this for 180 degrees. All right, we got this torque down. We'll go ahead and install the outer tie rod end, and that'll get torqued to 41 foot-pounds plus 180 degrees. And we'll do both sides as well. Alright, now go ahead and slide the sway bar down. The sway bar links down into the control arm. Just run the nuts up by hand, and then they get torqued to 69 foot-pounds. And I'm using all data for all of my torque specs. Alright, so now we're going to torque the rest of the hardware, the upper control arm bolts and the lower strut bolt, and we got to torque the top ones. We could do those before we did anything else because those obviously aren't affected by weight. But that being said, to torque anything that pivots, like the lower strut bolt down there or the uppers, we need to be on vehicle height. So what I did, you can put your wheels on it and slide underneath of it, but what I opted to do was use a couple jack stands on the lower control arms, go and lower it down until pretty much my feet of my lift were barely touching the frame. So I know that vehicle weight is on the jack stand. So now I'll go ahead and torque the upper control arm bolts, and I'll torque the lower strut bolt, and I'll go and also torque the top strut bolts or nuts. All right, the lower nuts get torqued to 124 foot-pounds. Do the other side. All right, now we'll torque the upper control arm bolts. Those get torqued to 126 foot-pounds. and do the other side. All right, we're ready to go up and go ahead and reconnect the electronic steering gear. Obviously that's not a big deal. You just push the connectors into the clip, push the little security tabs in so they can't come loose. And then obviously when you start to check for codes, you shouldn't have any. But again, you're gonna have to get this thing aligned when you're done anyways. So they'll more than likely have to re-zero your steering center. So they'll take care of all that. One thing I did do, if you remember early in the video, when I was taking the old control arms off, I talked about not breaking the clip that holds the wheel speed sensor line. Well, there's no spot on the rough country control arm to mount it. So what I did is I cut it off, used a zip tie, and loosely, like it's not very tight, but just enough, I secured the wheel speed sensor line to the brake line so it can't just flop around. That way, depending on wheels, anything like that, we don't have to worry about anything getting caught. So reconnect the power steering rack, and then after that we're ready to put wheels on it, but we'll have to go to the back and do that, so let's go back there. All right, the first thing we have to do in the rear is remove the wheel liner. There's a bunch of 8mm screws there, 2 on the back, and then we'll take this out so we'll be able to access the upper shock bolt or something else. But anyways, start by removing the wheel liner. Just like that, and then do the other side. All right, now what you're going to want to do is support the rear axle. You can use a jack in the center, which is I think how rough country has you do it, being they're considering that most people are probably doing this in a driveway. But I'm going to use T-stands just on the outer edge, just enough to support it. You don't really want to move, you don't really want to lift it up any. Just like that, and then we're going to go ahead and take out the shocks. There are 21 at the bottom, and I believe it's 21 at the top also. So we'll go ahead and take the nut off the top, take the nut and bolt out of the bottom, pull the shocks out. Then save bolts, we'll need them to reinstall. we got the shocks out. The next thing we're going to do is remove the sway bar links. The best spot for me to do it is going to be from the frame. The nut is welded onto the back of this bracket. It's a 16 millimeter bolt. So we'll take that out. Now the sway bar's free on this side. Do the same on the other side. Now we should be able to start lowering. All right, I had to switch over to the iPhone. The GoPro decided it wanted to break. Not physically break, but it's coming up with a error, SD error. Put the SD card in my computer and it works fine. I've tried another SD card and it comes up with the same error. So in the rear, I'll show you the one side, then I'll show you this other side. I'll show you how it goes together. Obviously I don't have a phone holder, so I'm gonna have to put this down to actually do the things. But now we're gonna install these spacers for the springs. It's gonna look just like that. Springs are out. It's gonna go in there just like that. The components, you have this plate with a nut welded on. It actually goes up top like that. And then you put the washer, bolt and stuff through, slide it up and tighten it. And then I just tighten it until the top of this bolt right here is flush with the nut on top. All right, we got the rear all back together, minus the fender liners. You can see how the plate works that holds the lower spring mount on. The shocks are all tightened up. Unfortunately, this kit doesn't come with the boots, but they will be all right. A lot of them don't have boots and they do fine. I doubt he's actually gonna take this in Baja anyways. So there's the rears. We're gonna reinstall the fender liners and then put his new wheels on it and see how she looks.